Hello, everybody. Welcome to my favorite webcast of the year for the greatest holiday of the year. I am thrilled to be here. Just to confirm in the chat that you can hear us and see us great, but I think you can. All the signals I'm seeing are good. Welcome to the Azure Functions live webcast. This is a special spooktacular haunting edition. You can see by the bubbling cauldron that Baby Yoda is brewing behind me and by Carrie's very festive background. Ankit, you're going to have to show up later today, I guess. We'll see what you have in store. I think you have some Easter eggs. So hello, and thank you, Josh, for confirming you can hear us. Welcome to our webcast. I'm Jeff Holland. I'm a program manager on the Functions team. If this is the first time you've joined us, our webcast is a chance for us to have fun, for one, and build really fun transitions, throw in sound effects, do whatever else we can to make Halloween spooky, but also to share the latest updates. We have a bunch of awesome community highlights. We've got a cool demo of a feature that I think many of you actually don't even know about. And then we're going to share what's coming new, all while paying attention to this chat and answering questions along the way. So I introduced myself. Harry, do you want to give folks a quick intro? This is the first time many of them have met you, I would imagine.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. My name's Carrie. I joined the Functions team back in August. And I guess a little bit of background about myself. I'm originally from Boston, and then I went to school in Illinois. So I've just been gradually, coming out west. Love Seattle so far. It's awesome. It's amazing. And I'm enjoying my time here on Functions team so far. So, Ankit, you want to speak a little bit about yourself?
Ankit, yeah, you're up, buddy.
Yeah, I'm Ankit. I am a dev on the Functions team. And yeah, I've been at Functions for 2 years about now. And I work on a lot of our different Functions runtime and just our deployment stories and some tools. Yeah.
Great. Perfect. It's great to have you both on. We've been lucky, like all of our webcasts, we've been able to get a good chunk of folks from across the team who continually blow us away with some demos. And I think Ankit's going to continue to have the to have that reputation living with us today. So maybe we'll jump. Actually, before we do, I am curious because obviously I've gone all out here in my house and in general. Halloween is my absolute favorite holiday. Matthew Henderson on the team, who many of you likely know, was asking me yesterday. He's like, what is the deal with Halloween? I think it's the most fun. Like, Christmas is great, sure, if you celebrate Christmas. Like, presents, Santa, cool, great. But like Halloween, it's like creepy, and you get like the haunting of Bly Manor and haunting of Hill House. And the other aspect is I used to be terrified of Halloween when I was a kid, like just so scared. And so there's something about like, I'm not afraid of you anymore that makes it so I just go all in. But I'm curious, Harry, what's your take on Halloween? How does this rank in your favorite season or even holiday? And it's okay if you say dead last. I will just immediately mute your mic for the rest of the webcast.
Oh, man. Okay. Well, I enjoy Halloween. Admittedly, I don't think I do as much as you do, Jeff.
Well, look at that background. Where did the background come from?
Well, I heard this was a hauntcast, so, I made this last weekend because, got to keep up with the theme, do something a little bit spooky at least. But I think my Halloweens, especially when I was younger, were a little bit less spooky. I remember when I was a kid, my parents, I had this Bumblebee costume that I always wore.
Like so, Transformers Bumblebee or like an
actual
Bumblebee?
No, like an actual Bumblebee. Like I was literally a Bumblebee for Halloween for 3 years in a row. It was either that or Power Rangers. So, I don't think it was as spooky necessarily, but we're getting there.
That's awesome. What about you, Ankit? How do you feel about Halloween?
Yeah, no, I enjoy Halloween for sure. I think I also enjoy the fall nature of it, just like pumpkin things everywhere and just the decorations. Like, I mean, I haven't been going out a ton, but like just going into different stores and just seeing all the spooky decorations, and I feel like that kind of hardens me. Yeah, I grew up in India, so back there I didn't really celebrate Halloween, but I was just amazed to see how much people really put all the effort that people put in for the festival, and it's just great ambiance to just be around.
Yeah, if there's any way that I can help the rest of the world go all in on Halloween, I'd be more than welcome to, or willing to. All right, we will jump right into it, and I see the chat coming in. So the other thing I'll mention, if I didn't already, as questions, comments, concerns, I guess, come up throughout this live stream, feel free to paste them in chat, and we'll keep a note of them here and update as we go. But let's switch over now to our PowerPoint slide. All right. Here we go. So we always start with what is new on the Azure Functions land and in Azure Functions land. So the first one here, Ankit, I think you were going to cover this one. What's this? What news do we have about VS Code?
Yeah, so we just released VS Code Azure Functions extension 1.0 finally. So yeah, go ahead, upgrade your extensions. Then this extension will now support custom handler functions. So you would be able to create functions in any language that supports HTTP server. I'm really excited to see all the different languages that people come up with. I've already seen like a blog post about some Racket custom handlers. Yeah, which I kind of like studied back in university, but never saw anyone use it. So I'm really excited to see all the different languages that come up with this. And then now we have open API triggers, so people can use their open API specification to generate functions directly using the VS Code extension.
That's right. And if you remember, if you're a regular viewer of the webcast, this was the Volcano Lightning feature that Skylar demoed, I think 2 months ago now. It's now live. You can all try it out inside of VS Code. Perfect. Yeah, we're really excited about that VS Code extension. Okay, this is one I'm excited to share. Again, if you're a regular viewer, you might have been aware of the journey that it has been to have VNet lockdown storage in a premium account. Well, I tested it out yesterday, and it works in West Europe right now. It's in a preview, very early preview stage. But this is such a hotly requested feature that even though it's very early, I wanted to flag ASAP. So it has to be in West Europe. It has to be Windows Premium for now. We're tracking improvements to both make it global, but also make it not just Windows. The not Windows one might take a little bit longer. But that said, if you go to if it's not live now, it will be live in the next few hours because I already published the docs. If you go to the Azure Functions Networking Options doc, there is a whole section on what you have to do here. It's pretty involved. Honestly, it's not as seamless as just saying like turn on private endpoints and you're done. You've got to add a few settings and swap around a few things, but it works. I tried it and it works. So if you're anxious on that one, feel free to try it too. I'm glad to see us making progress here. And assuming this goes well, hopefully this accelerates from here on closing out that scenario. This is another really exciting one. I marked it as what's new, even though technically I think the docs are going to go live for this one on Thursday or Friday. But I'm giving you a heads up because I've written all the docs. I've tested it. We're just waiting for one last dependency to deploy. It's a NuGet package. But that said, there is now an ability to write a retry policy for your functions. And what this enables you to do is to say, hey, I have an event hub triggered function. This is my favorite example of it because today, you might not know, when you trigger on event hubs, we checkpoint that stream, that event stream. And if your execution fails or throws an exception, we just keep moving along that stream. I've written a few blog posts about this behavior before. There's a reason we defaulted to that behavior. But it means that if you want to make sure you're not losing a message in that event stream, you've got to go write some custom retry handling logic. And when I wrote some of those blog posts, the top comment I got was like, can you build some of this just in? And so that is this feature. It actually works for any trigger, not just event hubs. But I think event hubs and Cosmos is where it makes the most impact, because what will happen is you can set up a retry policy and say, hey, if this function results in a failure, meaning that it results in an exception, I want you to retry it a number of times. And you can configure a delay, which is like wait 20 seconds and retry it. It can be an exponential backoff delay. So you can say like start with 2 seconds, then go to 4 seconds, then go to 8 seconds. You can do it. And so that if an exception happens, we'll even let you retry it indefinitely if you want, which, I mean, do at your own risk, but it's all there. So keep an eye out for the docs on that. It will be landing in, I think the main doc is like there's some error and exception handling doc. There's a massive section on how to do this across all of the languages. It's a feature I'm really excited about that we've been cooking up for a while. So super useful there. All right. Let's move along to our next one. Carrie, I think this is you. Durable Functions had a release. Anything to note about it?
Yep, Durable Functions 2.3.1 is out. So there are updates and getting some of those spooky bugs fixed around entities, partition management, telemetry, and more. So some of you guys that have been on a lot of these webcasts, you guys are probably familiar with the names, but want to give a quick shout out to Anthony and Chris for driving a lot of this work. And go to the next one.
Yeah. I think Anthony and Chris might both be in the chat right now. I know at least Chris
Yeah.
was.
I know
Bright and
Anthony
early.
was as well. He said that Ankit's background is, I think, quote, spooky empty offices at Azure Functions HQ.
Which is true, Ankit.
Yeah.
Folks might not recognize your background, but we all recognize it. I guess maybe even Carrie doesn't, because Carrie, since you joined the team, have you ever been to Building 41?
I didn't even know we were in Building 41, Jeff. So that maybe answers your question.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Ankit, is this exactly where your desk is too, that your background is? Like, Did you take a picture from the view of your desk?
Yeah, exactly. So like when I went to work to pick up some of my stuff, I took a picture directly from where I sit. So now it makes me feel a little more like I'm at work when I'm joining all the calls.
I imagine it's also fairly jarring for folks when they get on a call with you and they're like, hold up, Ankit, are you back in the offices?
And I also appreciate it because it's the only view I've ever got of the office. So.
Yeah, that's what it looked like, Carrie. Pay attention. We'll be back there someday. At least hybrid 50% there. Okay, anyway, last one, Carrie. I think you had this one too.
Java 11 is also GA, and thank you for Apexion team for driving a lot of that work.
Great. And it looks like there's some love in the chat too around the new partition distribution algorithm and durable functions. So those are all very fancy words, and I'm glad that it is resonating. Because yes, there is some very cool stuff. In fact, I think what durable functions is doing, I would love to see other partition things like event hubs take advantage of as well. There's some really nice stuff there. Okay, I think this is the last of the what's new. I captured a few questions, but maybe we will hold the questions I captured until after the demo. So Ankit, you had a feature that I teased at the beginning. I don't think a lot of folks know about. I will just turn the time over to you, and you can kind of explain to folks what this feature is and show a little bit about how it works.
Yeah, sounds great. Let me share my screen.
Go for it.
Okay, can folks see my screen?
We see avoid spooky long startup.
Okay, yeah, awesome. So we'll talk about the feature as we go through the presentation. But so yeah, what I'm going to talk about today is how you can avoid long startups in your function app, because truth be told, long startups are one of the spookiest things when you're developing applications. Yeah, so let's get started. So today we'll be performing some witchcraft. We will write a function app that will have a function such that anytime it's triggered, it will cook a potion for us. So for this segment of the demo, I'm going to put on my wizard hat to make sure that we are properly able to cook the potions. And to cook a potion, you really have two steps. You have to get a heated cauldron, and you have to add the ingredients. That's it. So to cook a potion in a function, we need to get a heated cauldron and add the ingredients. And then for any subsequent potion that we need after that, we can just keep adding on ingredients and reuse the cauldron. And we'll see why that's important later. So I'm going to jump right ahead into code. What I have is a function app or function project called Witchcraft. And I have one HTTP trigger function called cook potion. And this is the code for the function. So when this function is triggered, it cooks a potion for us. What it does is that it first gets, this is during load time, but it gets a provider called cauldron provider. And when the function executes, it will get a cauldron from the cauldron provider by calling this function. And then in that cauldron, it adds the ingredients. As we talked about, it gets the cauldron, adds the ingredients, and then responds back saying your potion is ready. So jumping onto the cauldron provider, so this is a function that we were calling from our Azure function. And get cauldron, it acts as a singleton provider, which is a very common pattern that we see, in that it checks if a global cauldron is already initialized or not. If it is not, then it will initialize it, and then it will return the global cauldron. Now, note that there may be some race condition here, but for the demo, we're not going to worry too much about. This is not production grade code at all. And the initialize cauldron function, what we are doing is we create a new instance of a cauldron, and we call the heat function on the cauldron. So we take a new cauldron and we heat it up, and that's it. So the cauldron is ready for use. Going to quickly jump ahead to what a cauldron actually is. It's an empty class, just as a simulation for the demo. It has two functions called heat and add ingredients, both of which we saw being called. And we're simulating both of them by waiting exactly for 3 seconds on each of them. Okay, so once again, to wrap up, it's like this function gets the cauldron as the ingredients. Now, you may notice that already, but the first time that it gets the cauldron, as we talked about how it initializes it, so there's going to be a 3-second startup penalty cost because we are initializing this cauldron. And then we add the ingredients, which takes another 3 seconds. But any requests after that would already have the cauldron because the provider will return that singleton instance. And then we just keep adding onto it. So first request will probably take 6 seconds, and the other ones will do 3 seconds. So I'm going to quickly just run the function just to show that. And you can usually run it directly from VS Code, but I work on the Func core tool, so I like to just directly use it. Yeah, actually, I guess I already have it here. But yeah, we run the function and I go back here, and here we see, yeah. So the first request is initializing the cauldron, then adding the ingredients. So with the time difference also, we can see that it took at least about 6 seconds. And then the next request that we have here, now that takes about, so 3 seconds, 44 to 47, versus it was, what was it? I think 29 to 35, which is about 6 seconds. Okay. All right. So now what I did, and we can do it now because it takes a while, but what I did is I deployed this to a premium function app, and I ran some load tests to see like how it performs. I gave it like consistent load for a period of 60 seconds, and I kept increasing the load as time passed. So as we see here, initially, as we would expect, it takes about 6 seconds. This is in milliseconds, so 6,000, so about 6 seconds. And then it goes back down to 3 seconds in a few other calls, and then it jumps back right up to 6 seconds. This is because like as load increases, your function app probably scales, and a bunch of new instances get added rightfully, and which is why you pay the 6 second penalty again. And we see these cliffs that are formed for the startup cost. Now, so what can we do to avoid these? Let me talk about warm-up triggers. Warm-up triggers are not a new class of triggers. They have actually been around, I feel like at this point, maybe even a year, but we haven't talked too much about it. So figured our demo here to see like what it helps with may help people to use it. So warm-up triggers, as you'd expect, triggers on a warm-up event. So what that means is that warm-up trigger is the first thing that would execute in any given instance that is running your function. What that does is before any requests are sent to that instance, any HTTP requests are sent to that instance, your function will have ran this warm-up trigger. For now, it is only supported in premium SKUs. And to understand how it is used, let's just take a very brief overview of like how things work under the hood. Let's say that we have this front end, which is the load balancer or even like scaling for this case that is taken care of. So as new requests come in, and in this example, we have about 2 active instances and 1 pre-warmed instance, which is a very normal scenario for a Azure Premium Functions. So as requests come in, it splits it among these active instances. And as the load increases, what Azure does is that it will turn that pre-warmed instance into an active instance. That's like a scaling up event right there. And a new instance will come up. Now, in this new instance, the first thing that happens is a warm-up call. This is when the warm-up trigger actually executes. So once the trigger executes, then it gets marked as pre-warmed. So all these instances, active instances that we saw here, had already ran the warm-up trigger. And we just see here how, like, during a scale out, we ensure that a warm-up trigger is executed in every instance. Okay? So now I'm going to quickly show what we can do here to make use of our warm-up trigger. I think one thing we noticed is that this initialize caldron, which we talked about, how it takes 3 seconds during the startup. So I'm going to quickly create a warm-up function. It has to be called warm-up because you can only have one warm-up function in a functions project. And then like a typical function, it will have a function.json and a script file called index.js because this is a JavaScript function. And yeah, and I've opened the documentation to show that this is kind of where you can look through it or read about it too. And I'm just going to copy this entire function JSON. Okay, and yeah, let's just also copy index.js and we'll modify it as we need. Okay, so now we don't need this part. I'm going to remove that. And from here, what we can do is I can just, oops. Yeah, I can just get the cauldron provider. So that will be in preparation, cauldron provider, okay? And then in here, I can call provider.initialize. Okay, that's it. So what this happens is we have now created a warm-up trigger such that before any instance gets executed, this code will run, which will initialize our cauldron. If you remember, this function sets the global instance as well. Okay, so similar to the test that I showed for before warm-up trigger is I also ran the load test for after deploying the warm-up trigger code to the same function app. Now, this is the result, and I gave the exact same load. And over a period of time, as you see, initially, it never takes 6 seconds because the 3-second that startup penalty is accounted for when the instance had already started up. So we see throughout that there's no such peaks. And just for a side-by-side comparison, the blue line is when we used warm-up versus the orange line is when we didn't use warm-up and had to pay that extra cost. Though one thing I will mention is that keep in mind, if your warm-up function is taking too long, it may affect slightly like scaling. This is like how long it takes to scale, because during a burst scale out, we make sure to run your warm-up trigger. In this case, we don't see any noticeable pattern, but we were able to successfully remove the cliffs. And that's it for my presentation. I hope you folks are able to use this warm-up trigger. Please use it. Let us know what you think of it, and if you'd like to see any changes. And back to you, Jeff.
Yeah, that's perfect, Ankit, honestly. And like I've seen this a lot in folks who want to do like, hey, I need to connect to a database, and connecting to the database, I'm paying a little bit of a penalty when I go and create that first connection, or maybe I'm loading in some cache and I want there to be some in-memory cache. And this warm-up trigger, as you've shown, is really nice to let you do that without having to pay that extra penalty whenever we do the scale exercise. So which is great. There is one question, Ankit. I can answer, I guess, half of this. You might have one too. We talked before. I was like, I guarantee this will be the question. But Daniel asked, any reason why it's only available on premium plans? You want me to grab this one? You have any updates on this? I don't know how much you know about some of the platform Glenna, Chris stuff behind the scenes.
Yeah, if you want to talk about it, Jeff, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, so this is only in premium today. Part of the reason, like what motivated this is, as you know, one of the value props with premium is we want to say you can get rid of cold start. And so this was one of the things where like, well, you know, if you looked at Ankit's first graph, we're like, are we really getting rid of cold start here when you're still paying that cold start penalty on scale? So we're motivated to do this primarily in premium, where we also have a few other hooks in the platform where this actually gets access, like these features in premium that try to keep that no cold start promise, that because we don't have a no cold start promise in consumption, and we're just working to bring cold start down, it doesn't snap in as neatly. Now, that said, we are analyzing as a team a bunch of ways that we can improve scale across all of our plans over the next few months. One of those things might be that, like, if warm-up triggers make sense in consumption, but no, nothing there now. Like it was very much we can leverage the platform capabilities that premium plan had that don't exist in consumption for the short term, but realize that is something folks might want. So you can still do this in consumption. You just might see a little bit on scale out exercises, that cold start piece. Excuse me. All right. A few other ones. Premium has a, yep. Yes, correct. Yeah. The other one, Eamon, yeah. We have the pre-warm phase in the premium plan where a lot of these hooks happen that doesn't exist in consumption. So the warm-up can happen right there. Great. And just love for the demo. I'm sure you can see the chat as well. It looks very good. All right. So maybe we'll answer a few other questions very quickly, and then we will share what is coming new, because there are a few and I don't want to get too far behind. So we answered the premium plan one. Ankit, I don't want to put you on the spot here, but I know you're aware of this feature. Alejandro asked, .NET 5 question mark. I guess, do you want to tease anything in this regard? Are you aware that this was even a thing we cared about?
Yeah, I mean, I'm also involved in the .NET 5. Like we are working hard to make sure that we have it coming. Yeah, I don't know how much of updates there are that I can share. But yeah, hopefully it will be coming. Like we are working on it, that I can tell.
Ankit personally is working on this. I saw Anthony, very official, Ankit. You could be a PM at any time. Way to give a very safe answer. I follow Anthony's lead on this. We are working on it. We want to make sure that we know it's going to be a popular feature. We want to make sure it's got good quality. Keep an eye on updates coming soon. It is coming for sure. It is coming. Okay. One from Marco Paul. He asked if there was any idea of a poison queue when you're using that retry feature that I talked about. Not out of the box, there is not. In how it will, like if I use a service bus queue as an example, let's say I have a service bus queue that has a policy that I can requeue an item 3 times, and I set a retry policy to retry a message 5 times. What will happen is and it always fails. Like it's just going to fail every time. When we execute it, it's going to fail. It's going to kick in our retry policy on the host and try it 5 times. On that 6th time, we're going to kick it back out and we're going to say, like, this thing was garbage. In the case of Service Bus is going to say, well, I have my retry policy. I'm going to requeue this thing. And so it's going to requeue it and try again. And then finally, after 15 total times, 5 times 3, the Service Bus queue is going to dead letter it itself. So you can leverage the dead letter capabilities of a trigger. Event Hubs doesn't have that. One of the things that we are tracking for a future enhancement to this feature is letting you pass in the current retry count. It's currently not exposed with the early implementation of this feature. But if you were using Event Hubs, the hope is that you could at least have a condition where it's like, hey, catch the exception. If I'm on my 5th retry or if I'm on my max retry, I'm going to go store this in a dead letter queue myself, or an Event Hub that's going to act as a dead letter queue. So we want to make sure we're exposing that pattern. It would only work out of the box today if your trigger source supported dead lettering. Outside of that, it's up to you and your code to make sure you're handling exceptions if you do hit that eventual failure case. And this one, I think I will also grab, and then we'll go to community updates. Matthias asked pretty early on, what about exposing OpenAPI for functions? Ankit mentioned in VS Code, you can now generate a function from an OpenAPI definition. For exposing, the best answer we have today is export your functions to API management and use API management to expose that OpenAPI definition. There's a few open source projects, some actually very cool ones that I know Justin Yu is working on, that at least for C# would give you kind of a swashbuckle experience where you could add some annotations, but nothing officially on the Azure Functions product right now outside of the OpenAPI integration stuff. So we'll pause questions there. I do have a few more. Chris, I still have yours. Hari, I still have yours as well, which are both good, but I want to make sure we get to community updates and what's coming too. So let me switch back over to our PowerPoint with our wonderful sound effects. Okay, community highlights. This is always my favorite part of putting together this stream, is going through and finding community highlights. We have a lot, and even some folks on the slide who are double dipping. As always, if you want to follow the links to any of these, I know you can't click your stream right now, but you can go to this very memorable link, aka.ms/function/links, and it has this entire list with clickable hyperlinks. So the first one, Mark and Gwyneth are putting together some amazing content. If you're not familiar with both of them, you should be. They are Azure MVPs. They are active on Twitter and on YouTube. They have what is called the Azure Functions University. And in fact, the first lesson starts today in like 2 or 3 hours. It's quite soon. So if you're interested in seeing that, or maybe you're already an expert on lesson 1, maybe you can share it with others who might benefit. Definitely something I wanted to plug. I know a lot of effort went into that. Omkar had a great blog that he posted around solving enterprise integration scenarios using Azure Serverless. So definitely recommend checking that out. That's absolutely a lens that I know a number of you watching are interested in, but we're seeing like a lot of interest in general around how serverless and integration are really forming like this really powerful combination moving forward. And that involves like logic apps, functions, durable, you name it. It's very exciting. Tom had a very useful post. It was actually very timely because when I was testing out that VNet stuff yesterday, I wanted to make sure that all the key stuff still worked. And I was like, oh yeah, what's the REST API to like manually fetch the keys for an HTTP trigger? And it turns out that Tom just blogged about it. So I will plug Tom's blog, but also it's useful. He has a way to automatically go and fetch things like a function key. So if in your deployment process or in your test process, you wanted to know like what is the key I need to trigger this HTTP function, this blog is for you. Bogdan had a post. This was super interesting, a scenario I didn't even know about. So I guess Bogdan, also an MVP, I believe, created a solution in 2019, back when the world was wonderful. But it went viral. It was something around parsing, I think it was parsing election results and publishing them on a page. And in order to do the background processing of like parsing the results, he decided to use some .NET Core functions and shared it on Facebook. It went viral. He was getting thousands of hits. And so he just explains that scenario of why Azure Functions was the choice he used, what some of the benefits was of making that choice given the scale that he hit, and also considerations and things that were learned from it. So a very cool use case that I would plug. Reyes had a good blog post around using durable functions in Data Factory. This is a scenario that I've been very familiar with from the Logic App side, but in Data Factory, he wanted to call an action that needed to run for a really long time. And most things in Azure land and also in the cloud, you can't have a single HTTP connection open for more than 230 seconds. And so the blog post is, hey, how do I get around this 230 second limit when I need to call a function to do some stuff? Enter durable functions that automatically exposes this async API, so you can do an instant request and get back a response that's like, we're working on this behind the scenes. And then his Data Factory pipeline continued to pull that endpoint until finally durable functions said, you're good, here's the results. And then finally, Mark, again, I know, Mark, I'm plugging you twice, but I had to give you credit. Mark published episode 10 in his series around durable functions. If you're not up to speed, you've got 9 other episodes to binge watch. This one is around writing safe orchestrations, making sure they're deterministic, making sure they follow best practices. So high quality content, I had to give credit. Appreciate. Oh, and I guess Carrie and Ankit, I will ask you this because I don't know, since we're giving Mark a little bit of a spotlight today. Did any of you see anything around Zippy? Or do I need to educate you all on Zippy right now?
I would like to be educated.
Oh, boy. Okay. I think I have a way to share my screen here. Let me find this. So we had a wonderful thing happen this last 2 weeks that I think everybody needs to know. So fan favorite Marie, who came on last month and blew us all away with her demo about using connectors. Marie posted this tweet. Let me share. Which screen do I share? When I say share screen, let me share my screen and we'll find out. This one, great, perfect. Okay, so Marie posted this tweet, which was a cool website and a blog she posted around building your first ever website. And this is for students. Marie volunteers and she helps teach students about functions. But you'll notice in that GIF at the very last part, there was this beautiful little art when Marie clicks on this art section where Marie, I'm guessing, illustrated our little friend Zappy. It's not Zippy. I'm sorry, Zappy.
Love it.
Zappy, which is Clippy's cousin. Anyway, Mark created this beautiful pixel art animation of our friend Zappy. I apologize, Zappy, for calling you Zippy. I think Clippy and Zippy. But anyway, here is Zappy, the Clippy in disguise, new and improved serverless version of Clippy called Zappy. That I feel is very important that everybody watching the stream, and you too as well, are aware of how cool that is. So thank you as well, Mark, for giving us Zappy, or I guess helping bring Zappy to life. I wanted to bring a Zappy animation in our webcast. Zappy is now our official mascot, with a special shout out to Functions Fox, which is a little bit niche of a mascot you might not know about. But Zappy. Okay, great. All right. Let's go ahead now and talk about what is coming, and then we'll answer a bunch of these questions that I see coming in. And I need a sound effect. There we go. What's coming? Whew. Carrie, you're going to give me a break from talking. What is coming around premium and consumption tooling?
Yep. So consumption premium tooling migration. We know this has been an ask that a lot of you have had for a very long time. And this is something that we feel we're able to address now. So there's ongoing work here right now. I'm driving a lot of this work as well, and I've been talking with Graham a lot on the dev team. And so you guys can expect to see some updates on this in the coming months. And if not, please shout at me.
Perfect. Yep. Very excited about this one. There's a very active GitHub issue around folks who want to have seamless ability to move between both. And now, luckily, the platform supports it. We just are going to finish documenting and shipping some toolings around it. I have to pause here on Kit because Barbara had the same question that I had, which, not to surface an old wound, are both of you aware of ASCII Gate? ASCII art. ASCII. Okay, so you're aware of ASCII Gate. Which is the Azure Functions version of the Watergate scandal that Anthony Chu almost got impeached for. Barbara asked a very good question, which is, can we bring Zappy in? Like maybe every time we run the Func tooling, Zappy shows up in an animated GIF form instead of our ASCII clip art. I agree with you, Barbara. Team ASCII art, Team Zappy. We'll see what we can do.
Okay. That's awesome. I feel like we should, definitely look into that.
I feel terrible that both of you, like, you're like, no, I don't know Zappy, but you're just like, oh yeah, ASCII Gate. Like, yeah, we're up to speed on this whole mess that Jeff helped amplify. All right. Ankit, Python. What's going on in Python land?
Yeah, so we are working to release Azure Functions support for Python 3.9. So you would be able to use all the cool dictionary syntax and what's coming. I think Anirudh, Roger, Vera, and the team are working. We have Stephanus and Anthony. And Node 14 preview is also coming soon. I think Mari talked about it a little bit in the last webcast too.
Maybe. I actually don't know if she teased this one out, but this is great. And I think we haven't always been as fast to ship language support when languages ship. And like Python 3.9, I don't think either of these are officially LTS yet. Maybe Node was like 2 weeks ago. But these are like very fresh to even be live. And we've got preview support coming pretty soon, which I'm excited about. And a similar story will be for .NET 5. We're hoping pretty soon after .NET 5 goes live that we'll have some .NET 5 story that folks can start to play with. So good stuff there. Carrie, I think this one, anything you want to flag around RabbitMQ?
Yep. As you can see, RabbitMQ triggers and bindings, we're working towards getting it to GA. There's some items that we want to make sure that we have complete and ready so that you guys have a good experience at GA. And I'm working with Yogesh right now to make sure that we have those all wrapped up.
Perfect. And this is something I just tested out yesterday. It didn't quite work end to end, but I asked the PM if I missed something. If you're using premium functions and using a container image, one of the common requests is, can I have that gesture between authenticating and pulling the container image all happen using MSI and not have to have me use like the admin key from Azure Container Registry? The answer is yes. You'll be able to do those very soon as well. And then finally, authentication features. Sometimes we talk about this as easy auth or app service authentication. We'll be lining up for Linux consumption here very shortly. Okay, so that is all of the stuff that we have prepared. So now we just get to answer a bunch of questions. And yes, and I actually am curious because I say your name Yanni, but it might be Johnny. It might be Janny. I'm going to say Yanni, but I don't know. But you should tell me in chat if I keep getting it wrong, because I think I shout out one of your questions every single webcast, and I want to make sure I'm getting it right. But anyway, they ask, first, RabbitMQ is in Kata. Yep. And so to get the RabbitMQ and function story all across the GA line with Kata going soon to 2.0 would be perfect. But the other question they asked is, any more function triggers coming for Azure static web apps? Anthony is in the chat, so he can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe the answer is not for static web apps directly, because the functions embedded in your static web app are intended to be called from the client side page. So those will be HTTP trigger, but I do know that there's some capabilities to let you use more bindings, and those might have honestly already shipped. So Anthony, this is a shout out to you if you're in the chat to correct Jeff and be like, hey, why don't you learn more about what we have? Which is a fair call out. Okay, I will ask this question, and if you have any other questions, pop them in the chat, because I only have about 3 of these left, and then we'll start to wrap this thing up. So this is your chance. I guess I have 3 more, because I see one from Chris here. I don't know if Carrie or Ankit are going to know the answer to some of these, so I'm going to say them, and if you know it, or if you want to give an answer, just give me a signal, and if not, I'll go for it. Hari asked, is the V2 platform upgrade still on target for this month end? And does it happen all at once across all subscriptions? I don't imagine either of you are going to know the answer to this, but I do. Okay, great. So we've talked about this in a few webcasts. We are doing a platform upgrade on the V2 runtime to enable us to continue to provide security patches for that runtime that is targeted to start next week. We've been sending out notices. There's a GitHub announcement on github.com/azure/app-service-announcements. With some more details. You probably have gotten some mails if you're going to be impacted. We've sent like 3 of them at this point. The answer to your question, though, Chris, and by the way, there's 2 options you have if you're in this boat. One is you can opt out of the platform upgrade. We won't touch your app. We'll leave it alone. You can keep running in the mode it's in now. You'll just stop getting updates moving forward. Or we recommend you could just move to V3 if you're one of the few apps that will be potentially broken with this change. So like the majority of apps, if you're running on V2, if you haven't gotten a mail, especially if you're not running on .NET, you can more or less just ignore what I'm saying. You're going to be fine. If you're using .NET, and especially if you've gotten a mail that says, hey, our data tells us that you're using some APIs that are about to be impacted by this upgrade, either pin yourself to the current version or move to V3. Those are your best choices. That said, it won't be an all-at-once thing. We will start it next week, but we'll do it in phases. So there's no real set time that I could tell you exactly when it will happen, in part because anytime we do any platform upgrade, we don't ever blast the whole world at once in case we made a mistake. We don't want to bring everyone down at once. So we'll do a very subset of regions and then slowly roll it out. I'm guessing it will take about, I know one of the devs, Pragna, sent a timeline who we're going to have on a webcast, I think, next month. I would guess it will take us about 2 or 3 weeks to make the upgrade across everywhere while checking along the way. So yes, and Anthony did chime into chat and corrected me, or rather said I was right, which is the right answer, Anthony. Okay. You do know this one, Ankit. Chad asked a clarification. Will I be able to use .NET 5 functions using the current V3 runtime, or do we need to wait for functions V4?
Yeah, so we are looking, what we are trying to do is to make sure that you can keep using V3 and then still be able to run your .NET 5 apps. So our hope is that, no, you wouldn't have to wait for the next functions. And once we announce how we support .NET 5, then you would be able to use it directly in V3.
Yeah, you can almost think of it how in V3 we have Python 3.7 and Python 3.8 and Python 3.9, and they're like these external languages, processes that we can version on our own. We're creating a language worker for .NET 5, so it will become another language. It is out of process. Like, we are spinning up a separate .NET process, which is different than how .NET 3.1 works today. So there'll be some docs around that and some considerations you'll need to make. But at the very least, you'll be able to start writing and targeting .NET 5 code here coming up once we finish that. Okay, this one from Chris as well, which is somewhat related. I guess it's in the same topic of languages. With V1 functions, we support .NET Framework. I believe it's 4.7.1. And the question is, will V1 get an update to 4.7.2? And I guess there's some issue that 4.7.2. I don't know on this one. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes to 4.7.2. I never know with .NET Framework. Like, the reason I'm hesitant here, and Ankit, I don't know if you know more. Like, in theory, a 4.7.1 to 4.7.2 is a non-breaking, minimal effort, small thing to update because you're getting like the third decimal thing you're incrementing. In .NET land, I don't know if that's the case. Like .NET Framework land, I don't know how close to Semver it covers. So maybe, I don't know. I don't know on that one. I'd have to find out. I don't know if you have anything, Chris, if you know anything about how we do .NET Framework versions in V1. Did I say Chris or did I say Ankit?
Oh, you said Chris. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, sorry, because I was looking at
Yeah.
Chris. I meant Ankit. I don't know if you know anything more.
No, I'm also not sure because it kind of depends on, I guess, our platform rates and stuff too.
Yeah,
so,
right.
Yeah,
Yes.
I can't answer that. Yeah.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, and let's see here. Yeah, we got that one. And yeah, on that note, Anton did ask, is V1 still supported? Yes, and no plans and no announcements to deprecate it. So you can keep using V1. Candidly, if you're not using .NET Framework, I would recommend that you get to V3 because that's where most of the investments and new features are lighting up. Like that retry policy thing I talked about, that won't work for V1. But V1's still supported. You can be in production on it. We're not getting rid of it anytime soon. But I would say unless you are using .NET Framework and you require like a .NET Framework dependency, use V3. But we're keeping it around because we know there's a lot of folks who need .NET Framework. Definitely don't use V1 for JavaScript because the only version of JavaScript there is Node 6, which has been end of life for like 2 years at this point. So get off of that if you haven't. Okay. Daniel asked a good question. Ankit, I actually am curious on your take on this, and I have a one too. Daniel said, hey, can I get, where can I suggest features? Actually, Carrie, maybe this one I will give to you, Carrie, and then Ankit, you can chime in, because there's almost two parts here. Where can I suggest features for Azure Functions? There's so many GitHub repos that I get confused. So, Carrie, I'm actually going to give this to you because I do know you have an opinion. Where could someone like Daniel or the rest of the folks who are watching go to request features?
I would say right now in the current process, GitHub issues are a good place to start, I think. And we also have a user voice triage. I don't know if you guys know about that, but you guys can go there and request features and voice ideas as well. I think this is something that we do want to discuss further, Jeff, offline as well, in terms of like getting more of a centralized place where we can get your ideas and, you know, have more of that feedback and have more visibility to it.
Yeah, and like I would almost say I don't know of very many PMs other than maybe like Anthony, who maybe even Anthony when you do this, who has a good grasp of all of the feature requests that are landing in GitHub. The area that we go that Carrie mentioned, and the reason I asked him is because he's actually been running these for our team recently, is that we do as a PM team meet every few weeks and we go over all of the user voice items. Well, not all of them every time, but we go over all the new ones and we go over old ones and we look at what are the top 10. So if you want a PM to view that feature request, probably the best place to go is user voice. You can file them on GitHub. I tend to think GitHub, like it's not terrible there. It can actually generate some good community discussion. Sometimes we'll create a GitHub item from user voice so we can get a little bit more like dialogue from the community. It's just a little less monitored by the PMs directly. I tend to think GitHub is a lot better for if you're hitting issues or bugs. And you think it might be with like the code, and it's not high severity. If it's high severity, open a support ticket. There's no SLA around GitHub issues. But maybe on that one, Ankit, do you have any advice for folks who maybe they actually want to file something like an issue, and we've got something like 25 GitHub repos that our team manages? Do you have any like how do you navigate it? How should folks navigate it? Do you have any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess like it also usually depends on where your feature ask kind of lands. So if it's usually something related to tools, let's say our CLIs, which So you could go to like the core tools repo, or we have this pointer repo called Azure Functions, which doesn't actually hold necessarily like any coder projects, but you could file issues directly there. Or Azure Functions host is one of the, also Azure Functions host. That's like the functions runtime where, again, we do monitor pretty actively, but yeah, so it's easy for your issues to usually get buried down with like a lot of bugs and stuff, like Jeff was saying. But if you do want to open a GitHub issue, yeah, I would suggest maybe Azure Functions, just the main pointer repo.
Yeah, and function, and Anthony pasted it too. We have an issue template in that meta repo, the Azure Functions one, that does have like oh hey, if this is a Python thing, go to the Python one. If this is core tools, go to the core tools. So that's a good place to go as well to kind of get acquainted. But there is a lot, and candidly, like every extension has one. RabbitMQ has a repo, whatever. There's the web job stuff. There's the function stuff. It is a lot. So we understand and sympathize. And yeah, there's a comment from Sean about staying away from user voice. It's fair. But we do review it every few weeks. And so if you stick something on user voice, APM or we as a team are going to read it and think about it and discuss it. So it is what it is. And congratulations, everyone. We just got 100 messages today on Restream. So kudos to everyone. Okay. Chris asked one more. This is the last question that I see, which is tooling, remote debugging on a P2v2, so that's an app service premium instance. Will it be possible again, or has it been dropped? Remote debugging. Ankit, I can't imagine, Carrie, that you have come across remote debugging in your first few weeks of ramping up on premium or whatever. Ankit, do you know much about the remote debugging story?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard specifically any updates or like much activity going on around there. I know we have support for that through app service. But yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think if I remember, and this is going to be pulling from memory, I believe the capabilities are there because more or less a lot of the stuff that makes remote debugging work is shared between web apps and functions. So if web apps is like, this is one of the features that we more or less piggyback on Azure Web Apps for. So if web apps is making some statement about remote debugging, especially on like their premium instances, I would yield to them first. If not, though, I know one of the challenges was just around like other languages. Like, could I remote debug Python or JavaScript that like VS Code would in theory have to do a bunch of work to follow that protocol? I believe for .NET functions using Visual Studio, it should work today. If it's been removed, it's not intentional, at least that I know of. But again, we're more or less just piggybacking on. If you're in the app service plan, you're piggybacking on that feature too. So I know that's not the best answer, but that's at least all I know. And so in an effort to address it, it's there. Okay, great. And yeah, for those who are wondering why you can't paste URLs, it's a YouTube thing. YouTube won't let anyone who's not an admin of the channel paste links because they don't want you all spamming your, I don't know, your deals website or your Amazon promo code and making money off of our live stream, I guess. I trust you all to post links. YouTube doesn't though, so blame YouTube. All right, that is it. Thank you everyone so much. Carrie, Ankit, it's been fantastic having you on the stream. Thank you all very much for joining this very spooky webcast. Any closing thoughts or things you want to share, either Ankit or Carrie, before we sign off? Happy Halloween.
Yeah, happy Halloween to everyone.
Use warm-up triggers.
Yeah, make sure to enjoy some of the seasoned pumpkin beverages or
yeah, pumpkin spice lattes.
Use warm-up triggers for sure. Exactly.
Use warm-up triggers. Awesome. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. We will be back. Actually, I'm taking a bunch of time off this December and even into November. I don't know when the next one of these is going to be. I would love to do a Thanksgiving feast. I've teased that like we should just get a bunch of people from the team all on the same call and we just have a nice feast and say hello. We let Zappy come in. We give Zappy a seat at the table. Maybe some of our friends from the Logic App stream that's happening tomorrow. But I don't know because I'm going to be off, so I'm not going to make promises because maybe November 16th is going to happen. Who knows? Cyberpunk just got delayed, so I might have a lot more time on my hands. And December, the same. Maybe we'll have a nice holiday festival, and we can all have fruitcake. I think that's the traditional a traditional holiday item. But we'll see what happens. So I don't know. Yell at us on Twitter, whatever you want to see in November and December. But regardless, subscribe to this channel for updates on whenever the next one is. Shout out to those of you who are still around and have liked the video. Another bit of drama, Carrie and Ankit, I'll loop you in on. Before we even went live, we had 1/3 of our people. There were only 3 votes. 2 of them were thumbs up. 1 of them was a thumb down. I don't know why they disliked it before we even started. Like, if you want to dislike it now, after we've been rambling for 55 minutes, sure. But the weird thing was, I complained about it on Twitter, checked back the next day, the dislike was gone. I don't know who it was. But if you're watching, thank you for turning your frown upside down. And for those of you, thank you all so much for joining. It's been great to follow your messages on the chat. Kevin, no news on the t-shirts. It's like the Jimmy Kimmel, Matt Damon running joke. I never have an update on the t-shirts. It's still gaining dust in building 41. Behind Ankit there's a closet full of 600 t-shirts. We'll figure out what to do.
Now we need the zippy t-shirts. Yeah.
We need zippy t-shirts. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. We will chat with you all later, and have a happy Halloween. We'll talk to you later.